The red lights flashed across the massive space station called Harmony's Edge. Emergency signals bounced between different alien ships floating in the dark space around it. Inside the main meeting hall, creatures from dozens of different worlds sat in worry and fear. Ambassador Krelton from the peaceful Republic of Andros stood at the center podium. His blue skin looked pale under the bright lights. His forearms shook as he held the datapad that contained the bad news everyone already knew about. "The Veltar Empire has taken another system," Krelton said. His voice cracked with fear. 3 more peaceful worlds have fallen under their control. Millions of innocent beings are now slaves to their war machine. The hall filled with worried sounds. Some aliens clicked their tongues. Others made low humming noises. A few just sat in complete silence, which was somehow worse than the noise. Elder Nixara from the Crystal Collective raised one of her many tentacles. "How many diplomats have we lost now?" she asked. Her voice sounded tired and defeated. Krelton looked down at his datapad. 17. The last 3 came back to us, but their minds were broken. They cannot speak without crying. They cannot sleep without screaming. Whatever the Veltar did to them during the talks destroyed something inside their heads. A heavy silence fell over the room. Everyone knew what this meant. The Veltar were not just conquering worlds. They were breaking the spirits of anyone who tried to stop them through peaceful means. The Veltar Empire was different from other aggressive species the galaxy had seen before. Most warlike races could be reasoned with eventually. They wanted resources or territory or respect. The Veltar seemed to want something much worse. They wanted fear. They came from a world where everything tried to kill everything else. The plants had poison. The water burned skin. The air itself was dangerous to breathe for most species. On that deadly world, the Veltar had become the top predators. They were tall, covered in scales, and had claws that could cut through metal. When they looked at other species, they only saw prey. Their way of talking was simple. They would meet with diplomats and slowly break them down with threats and displays of violence. They would show pictures of what happened to worlds that refused to surrender. They would bring weapons to peaceful meetings. They would make it clear that resistance meant death, and cooperation meant slavery. So far, it had worked perfectly. Krelton shuffled through his papers. "We have tried everything. We sent our best negotiators. We offered them trade deals, territory, even tribute payments. Nothing works. They seem to enjoy the fear they create more than anything we could give them." "What about military action?" asked General Vorth from the United Defense Coalition. His species looked like walking trees, but they were known as fierce warriors when needed. "Their fleet is too strong," Krelton replied. "Every military analysis shows the same result. A direct fight with the Veltar would cost millions of lives, and we would probably lose anyway. Their technology is advanced, and their soldiers are trained from birth to be killers." The meeting seemed hopeless. Dozens of the galaxy's smartest leaders sat together, and none of them had any good ideas. The Veltar were like a disease spreading across the peaceful worlds of the Outer Rim. Soon they would be strong enough to threaten the core systems where most galactic civilization lived. Then Elder Nixara made a strange suggestion. "What about the humans?" she asked. The room became quiet again, but this time it was a different kind of quiet. It was the quiet of creatures thinking about something they did not understand. Humans were new to galactic politics. Their homeworld, Earth, had only joined the Galactic Council 20 years ago. Most species saw them as just another peaceful race that happened to develop space travel. They seemed harmless enough. They were smaller than most warrior species, had no natural weapons like claws or fangs, and their technology was average at best. But there were strange stories about humans that made other species uncomfortable. Stories about how humans had turned their entire homeworld into a garden, but somehow remembered how to fight wars that could destroy planets. Stories about how they could be friendly and helpful one moment, then become coldly efficient killers the next. Stories about how they had tamed every dangerous creature on their world, then invented even more dangerous creatures to keep as pets. Most aliens dismissed these stories as impossible exaggerations, but some of the older species remembered that the most dangerous predators were often the ones that looked harmless. Krelton looked confused. Humans, but they are just another peaceful species. What could they do that our best diplomats could not? Elder Nixara's tentacles moved in a pattern that meant she was thinking carefully. "I have studied the human files. There are things about them that do not make sense. They come from what they call a death world. but they speak of it like it is a pleasant garden. They have weapons that could kill billions, but they use them to move mountains and change the courses of rivers. They have ended wars by making peace so attractive that their enemies chose to become friends instead. General Vorth leaned forward. You think they might have a different approach to the Veltar problem? I think, Elder Nixara said slowly, that we might have been sending the wrong kind of negotiator. We have been sending prey to talk to predators. Perhaps it is time to send a predator to talk to predators. The suggestion was strange and frightening. None of them really understood what Elder Nixara meant. How could humans be predators? They looked so soft and weak compared to the Veltar, but they were desperate. 17 diplomats had failed. Traditional military force would not work. The Veltar were getting stronger every day. They needed to try something different even if they did not understand it. Krelton made the decision that would change everything. Send a message to Earth, he said. Ask them to send their best negotiator. Tell them about the Veltar threat. Make it clear that this is probably a suicide mission, but that the fate of the galaxy might depend on it. 3 days later, the message reached Earth's Foreign Relations Bureau. It was a simple government building in the city of Seoul, nothing special to look at from the outside. Inside, it was full of humans doing the boring work of keeping peace between species that often did not understand each other. Lee Dae-ho was sitting at his desk, reading reports about trade disputes between mining colonies, when his supervisor Park Sora walked into his office. She looked worried, which was unusual. Sora was known for staying calm even during the worst diplomatic crises. We just received an emergency request from the Galactic Council, she said, putting a datapad on his desk. They want us to send someone to negotiate with something called the Veltar Empire. Dae-ho picked up the datapad and started reading. His expression did not change as he learned about the aggressive reptilian species that had broken 17 diplomats and was conquering worlds across the galaxy. He read about their intimidation tactics, their superior technology, and their complete lack of interest in peaceful solutions. When he finished reading, he looked up at Sora with a slight smile. This sounds interesting, he said. Sora stared at him. Interesting? Dae-ho, did you read the part about what happened to the other diplomats? They came back as mental wrecks. This species apparently tortures negotiators for fun. Dae-ho nodded. I read that part. But I also read the part about how they are apex predators from a death world, who only respect strength and view diplomacy as weakness. And that makes you smile? Dae-ho's smile grew a little wider. Sora, do you remember what I did before I became a diplomat? Sora thought for a moment, then her eyes went wide. Before joining the Foreign Relations Bureau, Dae-ho had been a military psychological warfare specialist. His job had been to break enemy morale without firing a shot. He was very good at it. You want to take this assignment, she said. I want to take this assignment, he confirmed. But first I need to do some research. Can you get me everything we have on apex predator psychology, territorial behavior, and dominance hierarchies? Sora was quiet for a long moment. Dae-ho, you realize that if this goes wrong, you might end up like the other diplomats. Broken, insane. Dae-ho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city of Seoul stretched for kilometers in every direction. Millions of humans went about their daily lives, completely unaware that their species was about to face its first real test as members of galactic civilization. Sora, he said quietly, has anyone ever told the Veltar what kind of world Earth really is? Sora looked confused. What do you mean? Dae-ho turned back to her. Has anyone ever told them that humans are also apex predators from a death world? That we didn't just survive our planet? We conquered it so completely that we forgot it was dangerous? For the first time, Sora began to understand why Dae-ho was smiling. 2 weeks later, a small human ship left Earth's orbit and set course for Veltar space. On board, Dae-ho studied files about his destination while preparing for the most dangerous negotiation in galactic history. He was not preparing to be a victim. He was preparing to remind the galaxy what humans really were. The planet Kethmar looked like a nightmare from space. Dark red clouds swirled around a world where the very air could kill most galactic species. The surface was covered with jungles that grew black and twisted trees, deserts where the sand moved like living things, and mountains that spat fire into the poisonous sky. This was the homeworld of the Veltar Empire. This was where they had learned to be the most feared predators in the galaxy. Lee Dae-ho's small ship moved through the outer atmosphere without any trouble. The ship's computer kept giving him warnings about the dangerous conditions outside. Toxic gases that would burn his lungs, radiation levels that would kill him in hours, atmospheric pressure that could crush a normal human body. Deho turned off the warning signals. He had read all the reports. He knew exactly how dangerous this world was supposed to be. The landing pad was carved out of black stone in the middle of a jungle clearing. Tall Veltar warriors stood around the edges, watching his ship with golden eyes that never blinked. They wore no armor, just simple cloth wraps around their waists. Their scales were dark green and brown, perfect for hiding in the shadows of their deadly world. Each Veltar was over 2 meters tall. Their arms were long and muscled, ending in hands with claws that could tear through metal. Their legs were built for jumping and running at incredible speeds. When they opened their mouths, rows of sharp teeth showed behind lips that could barely contain them. War Chieftain Sekhmoth stood in the center of the landing pad. He was larger than the others, with old scars across his chest and arms that proved he had survived many battles. His golden eyes watched Deho's ship with the patient hunger of a predator waiting for its next meal. The ship's landing ramp lowered with a soft hiss. Sekhmoth and his warriors expected to see another soft alien stumble out, already choking on the poisonous air, already showing fear. Instead, Lee Deho walked down the ramp like he was taking a stroll through a pleasant garden. He wore a simple black suit with no environmental protection at all. No breathing mask, no radiation shielding, no protective gear of any kind. The toxic air of Kethmar flowed into his lungs and he breathed it like it was the sweetest oxygen. Sekhmoth's eyes narrowed. This was not what he expected. Deho walked across the landing pad with calm, measured steps. He did not hurry. He did not look around nervously like the other diplomats had done. He simply walked forward until he was standing 3 meters away from the war chieftain. Then he stopped and waited. The silence stretched between them. This was the moment when other diplomats usually started talking too fast, trying to fill the uncomfortable quiet with nervous words. Sekhmoth had learned that silence was a weapon. Most prey species could not handle it, but Deho just stood there completely relaxed, completely patient. His dark eyes looked directly into Sekhmoth's golden ones without fear or challenge. He was simply waiting to see what would happen next. The first test came from the jungle. A pack of Draal beasts emerged from the shadows between the trees. They were the size of earth tigers, but with 6 legs and mouths full of teeth like daggers. Their fur was black with red stripes that helped them hide in the dark jungle. These were the creatures that the Veltar used to test visitors. Most aliens ran screaming when they saw Draal beasts. Some fainted. A few had heart attacks from pure terror. The pack moved in perfect formation surrounding the landing pad. Their leader, a massive beast with scars across its face, stepped forward and fixed its burning red eyes on Deho. Deho turned to look at the creature. He did not step back. He did not reach for a weapon. He did not show any sign of fear at all. Instead, he looked directly into the Draal beast's eyes and did something that no other diplomat had ever done. He smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was not a nervous smile. It was the smile of a predator recognizing another predator and finding the situation amusing. The Draal beast stopped moving. Its red eyes widened. Something deep in its animal brain recognized that smile, recognized what it meant. This human was not prey. This human was something much more dangerous. The pack leader took a step backward. Then another. Its tail dropped low and it made a soft whimpering sound. The other Draal beasts followed its lead, backing away from the human who smiled at death like it was an old friend. Within moments, the entire pack had melted back into the jungle, leaving only the memory of their fear hanging in the poisonous air. Sekhmoth stared at Deho with new interest. In all his years as war chieftain, he had never seen Draal beasts retreat from anything except a larger predator. But this human was small and soft, with no visible weapons or natural defenses. So why had the beasts run? "You are not what we expected," Sekhmoth said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "I imagine not," Deho replied. His voice was calm and pleasant, like he was having a conversation at a peaceful dinner party. "Shall we begin the negotiations?" Sekhmoth gestured toward a large building made of the same black stone as the landing pad. "Follow, do not stray from the path. This world has many ways to kill soft creatures like you." Deho nodded politely and followed the war chieftain. As they walked, more dangers revealed themselves. poisonous plants that shot thorns at anything that moved too close, pools of acid that bubbled and steamed in the ground, flying creatures with razor-sharp wings that dove at visitors from the toxic sky. Each time, Deho simply stepped aside at the right moment, or ducked at the right second, or moved just fast enough to avoid death by inches. He never looked worried. He never asked for help. He handled each deadly threat like it was a minor inconvenience. The other Veltar warriors began to whisper among themselves. This human moved like he understood their world, like he had been born to survive in places where death waited around every corner. The meeting hall was a vast chamber carved from solid rock. The walls were covered with weapons and trophies from conquered worlds. Skulls from dozens of different species hung from chains, reminders of what happened to those who opposed the Veltar Empire. Sekhmoth took his place on a throne made from the bones of some massive creature. Other Veltar leaders arranged themselves around the room, their golden eyes focused on the small human who stood alone in the center. "You may begin your pleas," Sekhmoth said. "Tell us what your pathetic council is willing to give us to spare a few more worlds. Offer us tribute, beg for mercy, show us why we should not simply take what we want." This was the moment when other diplomats usually started their prepared speeches about peace and cooperation. They would talk about the benefits of joining galactic civilization, about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. They would try to appeal to the Veltar's better nature. Deho did none of these things. Instead, he looked around the room slowly, taking in the weapons and skulls and trophies. When he finished his examination, he nodded approvingly. "Impressive," he said. "You have built a civilization based on strength and conquest. Your warriors are clearly skilled, and your technology is advanced. You have every reason to be proud of what you have accomplished." Sekhmoth frowned. This was not the response he expected. Where was the fear? Where were the desperate offers and pleading words? "But," Deho continued, "I think there might be some things about my species that you should know before we discuss your expansion plans." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. With a few touches, it projected images into the air above his head. The first image showed Earth from space. It looked blue and green and peaceful, covered with clouds and oceans that sparkled in the sunlight. "This is my home world," Deho said. "Pretty, isn't it? Looks very safe and comfortable compared to your Kethmar." Sekhmoth and his warriors looked at the image with contempt. This soft, wet world was exactly what they expected from a weak species. The second image showed a closer view of Earth's surface. Green forests and grasslands stretched as far as the eye could see. Rivers wound through peaceful valleys where strange creatures grazed in herds. "These are some of the animals that live on my world," Deho explained. "That large one with the trunk is called an elephant. The spotted one is a leopard. The striped one is a tiger." The Veltar looked bored. These creatures seemed harmless compared to the monsters of Kethmar. Then Deho showed them the next image. It was a human hunter, standing over the body of a massive elephant. The creature was easily 10 times the size of the human, but it was dead, killed by a simple spear. "Humans used to hunt elephants for food," Deho said casually. "We also hunted tigers, leopards, bears, and anything else that moved. We were very good at it." The third image showed a pack of wolves running across a snowy field. They were beautiful and wild, built for killing. "These are wolves," Deho explained. "They were once the apex predators of many regions on our world. Very dangerous, very intelligent. They hunted in coordinated packs and could take down prey much larger than themselves." Sekhmoth was starting to pay closer attention. These wolves looked like proper predators. The fourth image showed a human child playing with a large, friendly dog in a sunny yard. "This is what we did to the wolves," Deho said with that same calm voice. "We turned them into pets. We bred them to be loyal, obedient, and completely dependent on us for survival. We took the most feared predators on our world and made them into companions for our children." War Chieftain Sekhmoth stood up from his bone throne. His claws scraped against the stone as he moved, making a sound like knives being sharpened. The other Veltar warriors in the room shifted restlessly, their golden eyes fixed on the small human who had just claimed to be an apex predator. "You speak of hunting?" Sekhmoth growled. "But you are small and soft. You have no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. Your world may have been dangerous once, but you have clearly grown weak from too much comfort." Deho nodded thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right. Humans are physically weak compared to species like yours. We can't run as fast, jump as high, or bite through metal. In a direct physical confrontation, any one of your warriors could kill any one of my people." Several Veltar made sounds of satisfaction. This was what they expected to hear. "But," Deho continued, "that's exactly why we became such effective predators. We had to get creative." Sekhmoth's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Deho gestured toward the trophies hanging on the walls. "Your people hunt like proper apex predators. You are stronger and faster than your prey, so you chase them down and kill them with superior force. It's clean, efficient, and honorable." He paused, looking directly at Sekhmoth. "Humans hunt differently. We hunt like something that should have been prey but refused to accept its place in the food chain." The room became very quiet. Even the air seemed to stop moving as the Veltar waited to hear what this strange human would say next. "Let me tell you about persistence hunting," Deho said. "It was one of our earliest and most effective techniques." He activated his projection device again. The image showed a vast African plain under a burning sun. In the distance, a herd of antelope grazed peacefully. "These animals are called antelope," Deho explained. "They are much faster than humans. In a sprint, they can easily outrun any person. They have sharp horns, powerful legs, and excellent hearing. By all logic, they should be impossible for humans to catch." The next image showed a group of human hunters, carrying simple spears and wearing basic clothing. They looked primitive and weak compared to the magnificent antelope. "So humans developed a different approach," Deho said. "Instead of trying to outrun the antelope, we would simply follow them. Not fast, just steadily. The antelope would run away easily, leaving the humans far behind." Sekhmoth looked confused. "Then how did you catch them?" "We didn't give up," Deho replied. "The antelope would run for a few minutes, then stop to rest and eat, thinking they were safe. But the humans would keep walking toward them. Always walking. Never stopping. Never resting. The projection showed the hunt in motion. The antelope would bolt away from the approaching humans, their hooves kicking up dust as they fled. But after running for a short distance, they would slow down and begin grazing again. The humans never stopped walking. This would continue for hours," Deho explained. "The antelope would run, rest. Each time they would be a little more tired. But the humans never rested. They just kept walking, always getting closer. Hour after hour in the projection, the same pattern repeated. The antelope's runs became shorter. Their rest periods became longer. They began to pant and stumble. But the humans never showed any sign of fatigue. They just kept walking with the patience of mountains wearing down stone. Finally," Deho said, "the antelope would be too exhausted to run anymore. They would stand there gasping for breath, and the humans would walk up to them and kill them with a simple spear thrust." The room was completely silent. The Veltar were staring at the projection with something that might have been horror. "You hunted by being annoying?" asked Subcommander Velkoth, one of Sekhmoth's lieutenants. "We hunted by being inevitable," Deho corrected. "No matter how fast you ran, no matter how far you went, no matter how well you hid, we would eventually find you. We would never stop. We would never get tired. We would never give up. Sooner or later you would make a mistake and we would be there." Sekhmoth was beginning to understand why the Droll beasts had fled from this human. There was something deeply unsettling about a predator that hunted by being unstoppable rather than being strong. "But that was long ago," Sekhmoth said, trying to regain his composure. "Your people are civilized now. You have forgotten how to hunt." Deho smiled. "Have we? Let me tell you about some of our more recent activities." The projection changed to show images of human military history, but instead of glorious battles and heroic charges, Deho showed them something much more disturbing. "This is a city called Leningrad," he said. The image showed a large human city surrounded by enemy forces. An army tried to capture it by cutting off all food and supplies. They thought the humans inside would surrender in a few weeks. The next image showed humans eating strange things. Bread made from sawdust. Soup made from leather belts. Citizens boiling wallpaper paste to extract tiny amounts of nutrition. The siege lasted 872 days, Deho said calmly. The humans inside ate anything that could possibly provide calories. They ate pets, rats, leather, glue, even dirt that might contain traces of food. Over 1 million people died, but the city never surrendered. Velkoth made a sound of disgust. "That is not hunting. That is just being too stupid to die, is it?" Deho asked. "Or is it the same mentality that let us persistence hunt for millions of years? The absolute refusal to give up, no matter how hopeless the situation becomes?" He showed them another image. Human soldiers in a frozen wasteland, wearing inadequate clothing and carrying weapons that should have been useless against their enemies. This is called the Winter War, Deho explained. A small country was invaded by a much larger one. The defenders were outnumbered 10-1. They had inferior weapons, no air support, and winter temperatures that should have killed them. The images showed humans skiing through forests in the middle of blizzards, appearing like ghosts to attack supply convoys, then disappearing back into the frozen wilderness. The larger army had tanks, planes, and artillery, but the humans just kept appearing out of nowhere, killing a few enemies, then vanishing before anyone could respond. They did this for months, in weather that should have been impossible to survive. Sekhmoth was paying very close attention now. This was starting to sound like proper predator behavior. The larger army eventually gave up and went home. Deho continued. They had lost over 300,000 soldiers to humans who refused to fight fair. The projection showed more examples. Humans crossing impossible mountain ranges to attack enemies who thought they were safe. Humans hiding in jungles for years, slowly wearing down larger armies through tiny, constant attacks. Humans using their own cities as traps, turning their homes into mazes where invaders would become lost and confused. You see the pattern? Deho asked. Humans don't fight the way other species fight. We don't charge directly at our enemies or challenge them to single combat. We do whatever it takes to win, and we never stop until the threat is eliminated. He showed them one final image. It was a picture of Earth taken from space, but this time it showed the planet at night. The entire surface was covered with tiny lights, billions of them, stretching across every continent. This is what my world looks like now, Deho said. Every one of those lights represents humans who learned to survive in a place that tried to kill them every day. We are not the strongest species or the fastest or the most technologically advanced, but we are the most persistent. Sekhmoth looked at the image for a long time. Finally, he spoke. What does this have to do with our expansion? Deho turned off the projection and looked directly at the war chieftain. Your empire has been expanding for 3 cycles, he said. You have conquered 17 systems and broken the spirits of anyone who opposed you. You have built a reputation as unstoppable conquerors. This is true, Sekhmoth said proudly. But you have made one mistake, Deho continued. You assumed that all the other species in the galaxy are prey. You assumed that you are the only apex predators in this part of space. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. What are you saying? Sekhmoth asked quietly. I'm saying that humans have been watching your expansion with great interest, Deho replied. We have been studying your tactics, learning your weaknesses, and preparing for the possibility that you might eventually threaten our territory. He smiled again, and this time even Sekhmoth felt a chill run down his spine. And we have decided that your expansion ends now. You threaten us? Sekhmoth roared, rising to his full height. We have the strongest fleet in this sector. Our warriors are undefeated in battle. I'm not threatening you, Deho said calmly. I'm informing you. There's a difference. The human walked over to one of the skull trophies hanging on the wall. It was the skull of some massive predator from a conquered world, with teeth as long as daggers. This creature was probably the apex predator on its home world, Deho said, touching the skull gently. It was strong, fast, and deadly. It had never met anything that could challenge it. He turned back to face Sekhmoth. Now it's a decoration on your wall. Do you know why? Sekhmoth said nothing. Because it made the same mistake you're making now, Deho explained. It assumed that being the strongest predator on one world meant being the strongest predator everywhere. The silence in the meeting hall stretched like a wire about to snap. War Chieftain Sekhmoth stood frozen, his golden eyes locked on the small human who had just claimed that humanity was a bigger predator than the Veltar Empire. Lee Deho walked slowly around the room, examining the various trophies and weapons mounted on the walls. He moved like someone who was completely comfortable, as if he were browsing in a museum instead of standing in the heart of the galaxy's most feared military power. You have an impressive collection, he said, stopping in front of a massive sword that gleamed with deadly sharpness. This weapon probably belonged to a great warrior from some conquered world. Sekhmoth found his voice. That blade belonged to War King Thexelar of the Crimson Reach. He killed 300 enemies in single combat before my warriors brought him down. 300, Deho repeated thoughtfully. That's quite remarkable for individual combat. Human warriors rarely achieve such numbers in personal duels. Several Veltar warriors relaxed slightly. This sounded more like the admission of weakness they expected. But, Deho continued, human warriors don't usually fight duels. We prefer more efficient methods. He activated his projection device once more. The image that appeared showed a human soldier sitting at a desk, staring at multiple screens covered with numbers and maps. This is a human weapons operator, Deho explained. He sits in a comfortable chair in a safe building, thousands of kilometers away from any danger. The Veltar looked confused. This didn't look like a warrior at all. With a few simple button presses, this human can eliminate entire armies, Deho said casually. Not 300 enemies. Not 3,000. 300,000. In less time than it takes you to sharpen your claws. The projection showed missiles launching from ships in orbit, moving faster than thought toward targets on a planet's surface. The explosions that followed were visible from space. We call this force projection, Deho explained. Why risk our warriors in personal combat when we can eliminate threats from a safe distance? Subcommander Velkoth stepped forward. Any coward can hide behind powerful weapons. True warriors face their enemies with honor. Deho nodded. You're absolutely right. There's no honor in killing from a distance, but there's something you should understand about humans and honor. The projection changed to show human soldiers in a muddy trench, surrounded by explosions and chaos. They looked tired, scared, and dirty. These humans fought in something called the Battle of the Somme, Deho said. On the first day of fighting, 60,000 human soldiers were killed or wounded. The next day, more humans climbed out of their trenches and continued the attack. This went on for months. The images showed wave after wave of human soldiers charging into machine gun fire, artillery bombardment, and poison gas attacks. Most of them died within minutes of leaving their trenches. They knew they were going to die, Deho explained. They knew the attack was hopeless. But they did it anyway because their commanders told them it was necessary. Sekhmoth frowned. That sounds like the actions of prey animals driven by instinct, not intelligent predators. Does it? Deho asked. Or does it sound like a species that has learned to sacrifice anything, including honor, dignity, and individual lives, to achieve strategic objectives? The projection showed the final results of the battle. A few kilometers of muddy ground, bought with over 1 million human casualties. Humans will throw away everything that other species consider sacred if it helps them win, Deho said. Honor, fairness, individual glory, even their own lives. We have turned warfare into a science, and we are very good at it. He showed them more images, human cities that had been completely destroyed, then rebuilt stronger than before, human armies that had been defeated, then returned with better weapons and new tactics, human populations that had been conquered, then slowly undermined their occupiers from within until the invaders gave up and left. This is what persistence hunting looks like when applied to warfare, Deho explained. We don't need to win individual battles. We don't need to prove our courage in single combat. We just need to make sure that fighting us costs more than it's worth. The room had become very cold. The Veltar warriors were beginning to understand that they might have misjudged this species badly. Sekhmoth tried to regain control of the situation. Even if your people are more dangerous than they appear, you are still just one species. The Veltar Empire controls hundreds of worlds, millions of warriors, thousands of ships. That's true, Deho agreed. You have built an impressive military force, but you've made one critical error in your strategic planning. What error? Deho smiled. You've been treating this like a territorial dispute between species, but that's not what this is. The projection changed to show a star map of the local galaxy. Hundreds of systems were marked with different colors, showing the territories of various species and empires. This is how you see the situation, Deho said. The Veltar Empire expanding into territory controlled by weaker species. A simple matter of the strong taking from the weak. Red arrows appeared on the map showing the Veltar expansion routes over the past 3 cycles. It looked like a steady, unstoppable advance toward the core systems. But this is how humans see the situation, Deho continued. The map changed. Now it showed something that made every Veltar in the room go completely still. Earth was not marked as a single system in human territory. Instead, thousands of tiny green dots spread out from Earth like a spiderweb, reaching into every corner of the galaxy. Some were so small they were barely visible, but they were everywhere. Human colonies, Deho explained. Mining stations, research outposts, trading posts, monitoring stations. Most of them are tiny. A few hundred people at most. Many species don't even know they exist. More dots appeared in different colors. Blue for human-allied species. Yellow for systems with significant human populations. Orange for worlds where humans had major economic interests. This is human space, Deho said quietly. Not the few dozen systems we officially control, but the thousands of places where human interests might be affected by galactic events. The Veltar stared at the map in growing horror. The red arrows showing their expansion were now clearly visible as driving straight through the heart of human territory. You haven't been conquering empty space, Deho explained. You've been hunting in our territory, and we've been watching. Sekhmoth's voice was barely a whisper. How long have you been watching? Since your first expansion, Deho replied. We noticed when you conquered the Andori system because we had a small mining operation there. We paid attention when you took the Kextal worlds because we had research stations studying the local phenomena. We became concerned when you broke the first few diplomats because we have trade relationships with most Galactic Council species. The projection zoomed in on specific systems that the Veltar had conquered. Each one showed tiny human outposts that had been destroyed or abandoned. 17 systems, Deho said. 43 human installations. 216 human citizens killed or forced to flee. We've been keeping track. You want compensation for your losses? Sekhmoth asked, grasping for familiar negotiation territory. Deho laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Compensation? War chieftain? I think you still don't understand what kind of situation you're in. The projection showed Earth's solar system, but now the scale was different. Instead of one small blue world, it showed massive orbital platforms, asteroid mining operations, and construction facilities that stretched across the entire system. This is Earth's current industrial capacity, Deho explained. We can build 1,000 ships for every ship in your fleet. We can train 1 million soldiers for every warrior in your army. We can produce more weapons in a month than your entire empire has made in its history. The numbers on the screen were staggering. The Veltar had thought they were facing a small, peaceful species. Instead, they were looking at an industrial power that dwarfed their entire civilization. But the most important thing about humans, Deho continued, is not our numbers or our technology. It's our patience. He turned off the projection and walked over to stand directly in front of Sekhmoth. We could have stopped your expansion after the first system, he said. We could have sent a fleet and ended this in a few days. But we didn't. Why not? Because we wanted to see what you would do. We wanted to understand what kind of species you were. We wanted to know if you could be reasoned with or if you were just another aggressive race that needed to be put down. The temperature in the room seemed to drop even further. And what did you decide? Sekhmoth asked. Deho was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer. We decided that you are apex predators just like us, he finally said. The difference is that you hunt individuals while we hunt species. You conquer worlds while we shape galaxies. You think in terms of battles while we think in terms of wars that last for centuries. He looked around the room at all the Veltar warriors. Right now, there are human fleets moving toward every system in your empire. Not to attack, just to observe. There are human intelligence operatives on your worlds, not to sabotage, just to gather information. The meeting hall fell into a silence so complete that even the toxic wind outside seemed to stop blowing. War Chieftain Sekhmoth stood like a statue, his golden eyes fixed on the small human who had just offered the Veltar Empire a choice between rivalry and extinction. Lee Deho waited patiently for an answer. He had made his position clear. Now it was time to see what kind of predators the Veltar really were. Rivals or prey, Sekhmoth repeated slowly. You speak as if you have already won a war that has not yet begun, haven't we? Deho asked. War Chieftain, let me ask you a question. How many of your ships could survive if every star system in your empire suddenly had its navigation beacons shut down, its communication networks jammed, and its supply lines cut? Sekhmoth frowned. Our ships carry enough supplies for months of independent operation. And after those months, they would return to base for resupply. What if the bases were no longer there? The question hung in the air like poison gas. Sekhmoth was beginning to understand that this human was not making threats. He was explaining a reality that already existed. You have infiltrated our systems, Sekhmoth said. It was not a question. We have made preparations, Deho replied, just in case this conversation did not go well. Sub-Commander Velkoth stepped forward, his claws extended. You dare to threaten the Veltar Empire? We will tear your soft flesh from your bones. Deho looked at Velkoth with mild interest. Sub-Commander, how many humans do you think it would take to kill you? Velkoth snarled. I could slaughter a dozen of your kind before they could even draw their weapons. Probably, Deho agreed. But what if those humans were not trying to fight you in personal combat? What if they simply waited until you went to sleep, then pumped poison gas into your room? What if they contaminated your food supply? What if they sabotaged your ship while you were away? Velkoth's snarl faded into uncertainty. Humans don't fight fair, Deho explained. We fight to win. And we have had a very long time to perfect unfair fighting. The projection device activated again, showing something that made every Veltar in the room step backward. It was a detailed schematic of the building they were standing in. This is your war chieftain's fortress, Deho said calmly. Built from solid stone, defended by the most advanced security systems in your empire, surrounded by the deadliest creatures on your world. The schematic rotated, showing every room, every corridor, every defensive position. These are the 17 different ways human agents could eliminate everyone in this building without setting foot inside it. Deho continued. Gas through the ventilation system. Explosives placed in the foundation months ago. Sonic weapons that would shatter the stone walls. Biological agents introduced into the water supply. Red markers appeared throughout the building schematic, showing weak points and attack vectors that the Veltar had never considered. We have been preparing for this conversation for 3 cycles, Deho said. Every important building on every world in your empire has been studied, mapped, and analyzed. Every supply route has been traced. Every weakness has been catalogued. Sekhmoth stared at the schematic of his supposedly impregnable fortress, seeing it revealed as a collection of vulnerabilities held together with wishful thinking. This is not honorable combat, he said quietly. No, Deho agreed. It's not. But it's effective. And when you're dealing with a species that threatens galactic stability, effectiveness matters more than honor. The projection changed to show the star map again, but this time it displayed something new. Hundreds of human ships were revealed throughout Veltar space, most of them disguised as merchant vessels or research craft. These ships have been in position for 6 months, Deho explained. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a planet, but they're not here to attack. They're here to make sure you understand the consequences of your choices. Sekhmoth looked at the overwhelming display of human preparation and realized that his empire had been living under a sword that could fall at any moment. What do you want from us? He asked. I want you to understand what kind of galaxy you live in, Deho replied. You have spent 3 cycles conquering worlds and breaking diplomats because you thought you were the apex predators in this region of space. But you were wrong. The projection showed Earth one more time, but now it revealed the true scope of human civilization, not just the billions of people on the homeworld, but the millions of colonies spread across thousands of systems, the massive industrial complexes that could build fleets of ships in days, the research facilities that developed weapons the Veltar could not even imagine. Humans are the apex predators in this galaxy, Deho said. We have been for centuries. We just prefer to stay hidden and let other species think they're in charge. Why? Sekhmoth asked. If you have such power, why do you not use it to rule directly? Deho smiled. Because ruling is work and hunting is fun. Why would we want to manage the daily lives of billions of aliens when we can let them manage themselves? We only step in when someone threatens the balance we have created. The human walked over to the throne where Sekhmoth had been sitting. He did not sit down, but he placed one hand on the bone armrest. You have 2 choices, he said. The first choice is to continue your expansion. If you choose this path, you will discover that every world you try to conquer has been prepared for your arrival. Your fleets will find themselves fighting enemies that appear from nowhere and disappear before you can respond. Your supply lines will be cut. Your communications will be jammed. Your worlds will be isolated and defeated one by one. He paused, letting the implications sink in. This will not be the honorable warfare you are used to. It will be slow, patient, and completely one-sided. We will wear you down the same way our ancestors wore down the antelope. Eventually, your empire will collapse and your species will be reduced to a small population on your home world, under human supervision. Sekhmoth's claws scraped against the stone floor. And the second choice? The second choice is to accept that you are not the only apex predators in the galaxy. You stop your expansion, withdraw from the systems you have conquered in the past year, and enter into formal negotiations with the Galactic Council. You want us to surrender? I want you to evolve, Deho replied. You have proven that you are strong enough to be dangerous. Now prove that you are intelligent enough to be useful. The projection showed a new image. It was a joint human-Veltar military operation, working together to defend a colony world from some external threat. Humans respect strength, Daiho explained. We also respect intelligence. A species that can conquer 17 systems in 3 cycles could be a valuable ally in defending against threats that neither of us has encountered yet. For the first time since the negotiations began, Sekhmet looked interested rather than angry or afraid. What kind of threats? The galaxy is a dangerous place, Deho said. There are machine intelligences in the outer rim that view all biological life as a contamination to be cleansed. There are energy beings in the galactic core that consider matter itself to be an inferior form of existence. There are things in the dark spaces between galaxies that we do not yet understand. The projection showed brief glimpses of these threats. Fleets of mechanical ships that moved with perfect coordination, beings of pure energy that could manipulate matter with their thoughts, strange signals from the void that suggested intelligences beyond current understanding. Humans have been preparing for these encounters for decades, Deho said. We could face them alone, but it would be easier and more effective to face them with allies who understand the nature of predation. Sekhmet was quiet for a long time, considering the choice he had been offered. Finally, he spoke. If we choose alliance, what guarantee do we have that humans will not simply betray us when it becomes convenient? Deho laughed. War Chieftain, if we wanted to betray you, we would have done it already. We could have eliminated your entire species 3 cycles ago and blamed it on some other threat. The fact that you are still alive to have this conversation is your guarantee. Then why offer us this choice at all? Because, Deho said, humans learned long ago that it's easier to have dangerous allies than dangerous enemies. Enemies require constant attention and resources to contain. Allies can be trusted to handle their own problems while contributing to mutual security. The projection showed one final image. It was a ceremony taking place on Harmony's Edge, the same space station where the Galactic Council had first decided to contact Earth. But this time, both human and Veltar representatives were signing documents together. This is what the future could look like, Deho said. 2 apex predator species working together to maintain galactic stability. The Veltar Empire is a recognized power, with legitimate territory and respected sovereignty. Humanity as the hidden guardian, ensuring that no single threat becomes too dangerous to contain. Sekhmet looked around the room at his warriors, then back at the human who had changed everything. We will need time to consider this offer, he said. Of course, Deho replied, but not too much time. The galaxy doesn't stop moving while we have conversations. 2 weeks later, representatives from the Veltar Empire arrived at Harmony's Edge for formal negotiations with the Galactic Council.